All right. Welcome back to the podcast. Welcome back to Game and Compute. Here on this podcast, we talk about money and finance and the economy and career, jobs, side hustles. Today, I was wanting to touch on the topic of manufactured homes. So manufactured homes kind of look like trailers for the most part. They can be like double wide. I've seen them having like up to like maybe 4 bedrooms or so. 3, it seems like 3 is maybe average. They usually look very nice on the inside. There's some things to consider as far as what I've learned about them. So they really do tend to have cheaper price rates as far as rent and mortgage, and they do tend to cost less than your average house or even apartment in some situations. Now, as an investment for your own property, you'd want to do the research on this type of housing option, because it seems as if, from what I've researched, they lose value quickly. So while people can easily buy them faster, like build up the funds faster to purchase one and maybe rent it out as a property, because they're not really, like, they're sound structures to live in, but it's not like a house where you can easily deal with the foundation, and like they kind of have wear and tear to them like any house naturally would, but just replacing different things, it's a less solid structure than your average physical typical house would be. So it is an option, but also, they seem to depreciate in value quite rapidly, and it might not be like a lifetime investment. You'd want to research the upkeep and, kind of what it takes. But I don't really know too much detail on that. That's all I can really recommend is, definitely doing your research out, and seeing, you might have a benefit from it, you might not. On the renter side, on the other end, if you're a tenant, those tend to be kind of a cheaper bit of a rental option from like an apartment or renting in a house. The cool thing about manufactured houses is that, they might have land, attached to them. I mean, I've seen them mostly in cities. So the ones in the cities, that's kind of like a more complex kind of situation. They usually have like parks of them, and then they're kind of like right next to one another. But even so, there's still some little bit of yard space, a little bit of backyard space a lot of times. Whereas with an apartment, you wouldn't really usually get that much space. You might get a balcony at an apartment. You might get a gym. You might have a little space for like dogs to run around, or like play equipment for kids, or like a little courtyard area, grilling area, stuff like that. And it's usually definitely going to be shared with a lot of people. There might be a pool, a lot of amenities. Sometimes these parks for these manufactured homes can also have amenities, on their site as well, like maybe in the form of different like bungalows and stuff like that. And then in addition to that, you might have just in general kind of more a little bit more privacy, a little bit more flexibility depending on the layout. If you're not in like one of those park areas and you do actually have one on a lot that's like next to actual other houses, you might actually have the benefit of having like more of a yard and everything like that. And it's kind of, for the renter, it seems to be kind of a nice option. because you still get your housing. It's kind of like housing where you're not like attached to other people's property, like apartments. You have upstairs, downstairs, neighbors sharing walls. Depending on the walls and all that, structure of those buildings, it might be a little bit hard to walk around, quietly. I'm the kind of person that, if I'm in an apartment, I prefer, excuse me, a ground floor, because I like to do like a little bit of like martial arts workouts and dancing and stuff like that. Like where, I don't think people want me pounding on their floor, on their ceiling, and like jumping all over the place if I want to do like old school like Insanity or P90X workouts or something, and I'll be like jumping on their ceilings. So sometimes depending on the apartment complex, it might be a little hard either for your own lifestyle, or you might have neighbors that have like dogs upstairs or kids upstairs that are just constantly running back and forth on your ceiling, or people who share walls that are like, kids might have like a basketball hoop on their bedroom wall, like one of those little like indoor ones where they're like, maybe they're wrestling around and pounding on the wall and like bouncing off of stuff. And like sharing walls can be really hard. And then you might have the people below you complaining if you're kind of heavy-footed. I remember I had a friend who had an apartment, who they had this like foot massager, like they had this like massage chair, or like a lazy boy chair, that they kind of like souped up with like these different like portable back massagers. And then they had one of those foot massagers, the portable kind that they put at the footrest. And like instead of the footrest, they put that massager. So it was a really relaxing chair, and you could just put your feet in the thing, and it was like a massaging chair with a foot massager. But the neighbors would complain because the vibrations from the foot massager were like too annoying for the people below, in the unit below. And so that's just some stuff to keep in mind. It's not impossible to be in touch or anything with property owners, and trying to like learn what's the cost and benefits. Price wise, it seems like rent for these manufactured homes is a lot cheaper than renting in a house. It can be cheaper than renting a room. You just want to make sure it's like a sound structure. And like again, like sound quality, stuff like that. Like you want to make sure you're not like right on a highway if the walls are thin, or like right on a train track and then the thing is going to be like rattling around. Things like that. Like there's just like small things to consider, because it is a different kind of housing. It's built from probably different materials. The process with it is different. A lot of times they're kind of raised up, so there's kind of like a crawl space kind of underneath. And so it's good for people when they need to get repairs, but also it's like, that can create kind of like an echo effect, on the ground. It's not like as solid flooring. It might be a little bit, like, what do you call it? When it's like, echoey, because it's hollow. It's more hollow. So, yeah, with that, I hope that's helpful. It might be something to look into. I mean, I'm not a professional real estate agent or anything like that. I've considered getting a real estate license, but I haven't done that. And I just talk to a lot of people, and I am on a team with where we consult our housing team, and we are looking for housing for a lot of people in San Diego, and that's just a trend I've kind of noticed coming up when I do search for housing. Usually it's the manufactured homes that kind of like have the cheaper rent rates. You might have a bit of bigger space to yourself, and just kind of weighing that between like if you're actually paying the rent or if you're actually trying to buy it and rent it out, kind of what you could expect to either benefit from or have as a cost to you or a problem to you. But it's an option, and I feel like in this day and age, people need options. Just, you don't want to get screwed for like, you don't want something with bad plumbing quality or some weird mold or like infestation kind of issue. Like, definitely you want to do your research. You want to always not just look at the price. That's something I've had to learn in my life. Sometimes the cheap price of something might not be worth the hassle. I've learned that sharing with roommates. My rent was under $800, which in San Diego is unheard of for a room to rent in a typical house. And with all the, that was including utilities, Wi-Fi. It wasn't like the best Wi-Fi, but it was Wi-Fi. And, bathroom, shower, toilet, like the regular stuff, kitchen with an oven, with a fridge, not an oven and fridge, you know what I mean? The kitchen had an oven, had a fridge, had a microwave. We had a washer dryer in the house. The washer dryer would break sometimes. It was a really old house. We had few plumbing issues. We had some bug issues. We had all kinds of issues in addition to the noise from the neighbors who did construction, and then the noise of the thin walls because it was a duplex. So hearing the neighbors stomp around and hearing their conversations and hearing their doors and stuff like that, and then hearing my roommates with their situations going on all the time, and like, was that really worth less than $800? I mean, it sustained me, but also it was like, literally I had to like flee. So that's kind of the cost I paid for like a cheap rent, But I hope that's helpful. It's not really maybe like ideal, or I'm not maybe giving like the most detailed options, but I mean that is something that I am coming across a lot. In addition, you would check out hostels, single room occupancies called SROs, ILFs, which are independent living facilities, or ILAs. Those are other options if you're going to share with people anyways. SROs, single room occupancies, tend to be like a motel room basically. Just you want to consider, usually the people who are being led towards these places, I'll be honest, usually they have maybe like a mental or emotional condition where, they unfortunately their symptoms are so strong that they cannot work to support themselves, and that creates a whole other factor of stressors. And so, that's my honest, thing that I would say to look out for. I'm not ageist, I'm not sexist, I'm not racist, I'm not, against people with mental health or like disability of any kind. But I mean, you have to, if you're going to live with people, you have to consider the kind of people you're living with. And that's the honest truth. If you have someone with, paranoia or social issues or hallucinations, and they're like responding to them and screaming, and like that might be super triggering for you. If you have someone who's using substances around you, and you don't want to be around, anything like that, that might be super triggering for you to be sharing a house with somebody who's always smelling like weed or something like that, where you're just like, maybe you're recovering or maybe you're not trying to do that. So sometimes when you do have those lower price housing options like the ones I've mentioned, if you're sharing with, renting a room and sharing a space with other people, you're going to get that unfortunate issue of having to interact with people like that on that level. And yeah, it might be cheaper, but it's really not that much cheaper. Like these days, everything's so expensive that even cheaper might not be worth your money. But I mean, those are options, and if you can use it as a way to kind of get yourself in a better footing, it's an option. So I'm just putting those out there for people who might need to learn about it or know about it. Look for those types of things in your cities. 211, usually you can contact them for a list of ILFs and SROs. You'd have to call them all and see what they usually have links attached to them, but you have to call them and verify, do you have a room available? Is there space here for a male, for a female? Is it a shared room? Is it a private room? Do you serve meals? Some of the ILFs might serve 1 or 2 meals a day. Some of them don't. Does it have Wi-Fi? How many other people live there? You might have 3 people living with you. You might have 7 or 8 people living with you. You might have to share a bedroom, still spending like $1,000 to share a bedroom. Usually ILFs run about the price of a room to rent, even when you're sharing a bedroom. And so a lot of times those aren't ideal options, but some people like it because it has the meals and there's like the staff sometimes living on site. They're not like medical trained staff necessarily, but it's like, the housing manager or property manager or whatever it may be might live in the house or have very, access to texting and calling, have contact with the housemates. Somebody has an eye on the place. It's not so much like it's not as independent as like your typical apartment or house. You do have more kind of almost like hands-on people running the spaces. So yeah, all those things are to consider. I wanted to record on this because I'm not sure if this is common information. To me it is, because it comes up in my work all the time and we're usually checking what's new and what's available and who gets placed where. But yeah, it might help some people out there to find some options. For a lot of people, these are some options that can help them to avoid homelessness, being on the street. But right now, honestly, like sometimes it's not ideal. Nobody wants to be spending $1,000 to $1,500 to rent monthly somewhere that you don't even want to rent. So I get it, but sometimes it's like, hey, if you're able to save $50 a month, and you find an ideal spot, sometimes it's like, well, might as well roll with it. What are you gonna do? And to mention, I think I've mentioned this before, but SROs, sometimes they have a shared bathroom. They might have a dorm style bathroom on each floor. So say if it's a 4-story building, it might have 4 stalled bathroom shower spaces. It might have kitchens where you're sharing the kitchen. Some of them have more private rooms where you have your own private bathroom with a toilet, with a tub, with a shower, and maybe like a little kitchenette where you have like a microwave, mini fridge, hot plate option. Some of them don't let you have hot plate options. Some of them might allow like a toaster oven or like an induction, like a portable induction stovetop, you know what I mean, burner or whatever you call it. And then just checking, because they all vary. Some of them cater towards youth age, ages 18 to 25. Some of them are, around age 18. I think for SROs, you have to be age 21, but I think there are some like LGBTQ plus friendly spots, or ones that like are co-ed. Some of them are female only, some of them are male only, some of them are seniors only. So yeah, you can look into those and just kind of see what's around in your area. They're filling up. Everything's filling up. In San Diego, the safe parking lots are even pretty filled. And those before weren't filling up at all. Like, so it just goes to show people are like resorting to living in their cars more and more nowadays. And the city doesn't allow you to sleep in your car on the road, on the like parked on the curb. You'll get cited for that unless you find like a spot like in the cut somewhere where nobody can really find you. But they patrol and they look for people. And so a lot of people get tickets because they're sleeping in their cars. So, if you are going to be sleeping in your car, you really do have to know the area and know what time, people are where. I've started seeing RVs parked all over the city. I'm pretty sure people are living in them. Some of them, I don't even know if they run. It's just people are living in them. But, yeah, people are doing what they need. People are moving into RV parks, those beach, rest stops and stuff like that. Like it's a mess. Let's be honest. It is a mess. For the average Joe out there, it's a mess. It's pushing us all into a situation where it's like, okay, what's affordable? So, yeah, the cost of living in some places might be lower, but, if you're not working remotely, you might have a pay rate that's, lower in some areas because the cost of living is a little bit lower. So it might just even out, in all honesty, sometimes. A lot of people are resorting to second streams of income, getting an extra part-time job. So most people right now are working full-time and then adding part-time work. And then there are a lot of people who unfortunately can't even work because of their health and mental conditions. Those are the people we work with that we're trying to help stay off the streets, that aren't getting their placements either. So it's hard. It's a nightmare, but keep pushing. That's all I could really recommend. Keep pushing through and do what you can do for yourself, for your family, for your loved ones. Keep researching things out. If I find things that I think might be of benefit for people to tune into, to listen to, things that I'm doing in my life that I have found beneficial for myself, just to add a little bit more balance here and there, I'm going to post that info. I don't know what's going on with my throat, but let's hope I'm not getting freaking sick, because I just got over being sick at the beginning of August, and now we're almost starting September, and I'm recording this right before September, and so let's hope that I don't get sick. But I can't really afford to get sick right now, honestly, because I've been taking days off work, so I'm not trying to go without pay, but I guess I do still have like 3 to 4 days I can take off, and then sick leave of 2 weeks, but I never really dipped into my sick leave yet. So at this point, it's almost like I can only take off days if I'm like taking sick leave. But yeah, that's kind of all I have to report for now. I hope this is helpful, and thanks for listening.